Dreams. No matter where you are in life, dreams are something you have or have had. And no, I'm not talking about sleeping dreams, which also apply, but I'm talking about goals and aspirations, the dreams that you hope can become a reality in the future. Now, if you're like me, and most other humans, whether it was in service of another dream, realizing you had to settle for the reality of needing money to survive, or maybe even because you just had to accept you weren't cut out for it, you've given up on a dream at some point in your life. If you know how devastating that feeling is, you know exactly how he feels in the beginning of Kakunaru Uewa. Kakunaru Uewa, or Now That We Draw, follows Uehara Yuki, a high school student who dreams of becoming a mangaka. He has had minimal interaction with anyone his age before, preferring to live in the 2D world of anime and manga over the world he actually inhabits. He put his sweat and tears into creating a romance manga featuring his ideal type of heroine, a pure, sweet girl who has never held hands with a boy, and brings it to a publisher thinking it could be his big break. And well, as you might have guessed, it's just not good. At all. His characters are so detached from reality that they're impossible to relate to, and it results in a boring story produced by the mind of someone who lacks the experience of real human interaction. The editor tells him like it is, and encourages him to come back with an improved manuscript. For Uehara though, this is the end of the world, because what he thought was his best wasn't enough. Rather than going back to the drawing board, he's ready to give up on becoming a mangaka, and looks for a way to discard the manuscript that reminds him of his failure. However, there's only one problem. Before he can get rid of it, he runs into Miyamoto Nina, the most popular girl in his school, and the type that he is least comfortable with, a gyaru. She runs off with his manga, reading it while effortlessly leaving him in the dust, and all Uehara can think about is how his school life will be over once the girl at the top of the social ladder exposes his secret passion to all of their classmates. Miyamoto doesn't do that though. In fact, she's touched by his manga, and thinks that it will only be fair if she shares something personal with him in return, her own manga. Uehara is blown away, not only because they had the same dream of becoming mangaka, but because her art is leagues ahead of his, and she even has an editor that she is in regular contact with who recognizes her quality. Despite having a robust social life, she is still ahead of him in the one thing he has dedicated all of his free time toward. This is about to send him further down the road of defeat, but he finds out that there's one more thing that they share: the lack of experience and love to write realistic romance. Despite how people perceive her, Miyamoto has never been in a relationship, and according to her editor, it is evident in the story of her manga. They have this problem in common, but Miyamoto doesn't see why it has to stay that way. She suggests a simple solution. If they are lacking the experience of a relationship, why don't they just start dating and gain that experience together? Of course, it will be a fake relationship, but for their dream, it will be worth it. Although he has some hesitation, Uehara agrees that he would do anything to get closer to becoming a published mangaka, and that's how both their fake relationship and the journey of Now That We Draw begins. Now, if I had to describe Now That We Draw in a nutshell, I would say it's a mix between My Dress Up Darling and Beat in Motion. There are other romance series with a gyaru lead, but My Dress Up Darling is the first to come to mind for two main reasons, and the first is really a symptom of the second. Firstly, Miyamoto really gives off Marin energy, in both the fan service and the lack of boundary sense. But although they have times when they're just teasing their respective male leads, the thing that usually gets them carried away is their tunnel vision for their passions. Neither Miyamoto nor Marin are actually as unabashedly bold as they portray themselves to be, which is evident by the fact that there are times when they are more embarrassed than their counterparts. But more importantly, the second reason I compare the series is that they truly both love what they're doing, and whether it's acting out scenes for her manga for Miyamoto, or wearing revealing clothing for her cosplay for Marin, they are both willing to go to whatever lengths to do well in what they care about, and they share that with both Uehara and Gojo respectively. On the other hand, Now That We Draw is a much less safe for work manga than Beat in Motion, but it shares that same passion. By the way, if you haven't read Beat in Motion, check it out, or at the very least, check out Giguk's video on the series. The essence of Beat in Motion is the struggle and joy of creating art in pursuit of your dreams, and how sharing that with someone else can create a special bond. That same core element is present in Now That We Draw as well, creating both a fun romance story and an inspirational one at the same time. If you're not a fan of the will they, won't they type of series though, this manga is perfect for you. You get all of the dating without losing the actual buildup of feelings. As I mentioned before, the two leads act as if they are in a relationship to help them write more realistic romance, so we get to see them actually go on dates and have some physical proximity, which is quite rare in the early stages of romance manga. I alluded to this before as well, but there's a bit of fan service spam in here if you're averse to that. I'm personally not the biggest fan of unwarranted fan service spam myself, but I will say that in this manga, I'm a bit more tolerant of it because the cliche stuff is bailed out by being in service to the premise. Is that an excuse? Maybe, but I'm willing to give it some grace here. The tropes don't end with the fan service either. As you probably expected, they pulled the classic childhood friend meeting again cheese as a curveball, but here, to be honest, it's more like a childhood acquaintance. Either way, in both the case of the fan service and the tropes, because the manga is about manga, it is able to have some self-awareness and meta-commentary about the cliches of the genre. Thus, while you're actually reading it, it rarely feels like it is too unbelievable because they have prepared you to suspend your disbelief in that way from the first chapter. That isn't to say that you can get away with being a one-trick story forever, and fortunately, you eventually get to learn the backstories of the main duo, which helps ground the shenanigans that occupy the bulk of the manga. Once these more relatable chapters happen, the manga allows itself to be taken a bit more seriously and begins to develop an actual romance beyond the hijinks. Of course, it's still only in the early stages of doing so, but I can see this getting an anime adaptation down the line, so get in relatively early if that's your thing. Now, with all that being said, is this the best manga or even the best romance manga I've read recently? No, I can't say that. But as someone who aspires to create, and more specifically, write stories of my own, it's a manga that I found at the right time in life. And maybe it will be for you too. Because sometimes your dreams feel unattainable. You feel like no matter how hard you're working, you're stuck running in place. But then something comes along that makes you realize maybe you weren't working as hard as you thought you were. Maybe you didn't want it as badly as you thought you did. But now you do. Because it only takes one person to appreciate your work, to see your potential. That one person might be all it takes to make you want to keep going. And it might take some time to find that person. But until then, maybe even a random romance manga that you stumble across one night might be enough for now, because it has a girl that will inspire you. But anyway, thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments if you've read this manga, and if so, your thoughts on it. And if you haven't, are you going to check it out? Also, if you have any manga you want me to check out, drop those in the comments below as well. If you have even 5 seconds to spare, it'd help a lot if you liked, subscribed, and all that other good stuff. There should be a new video out same time next week. See ya.